I'm Rob.
And I'm Nate.
And welcome back to Rob and Nate Record a Podcast. Who's taking the lead tonight?
I think you will.
Yeah. So tonight we are finishing up our Jessica Chastain month. And we kind of went back and forth on what we were going to watch tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Had some debate between the two of us. Do you remember what was originally planned?
The original plan was to watch The Debt, which is a good movie.
Uh-huh.
And then the second plan was to watch The Zookeeper's Wife, which might be a good movie. We decided, we've had too many good Jessica Chastain movies. We need some contrast. So let's choose a movie that looks like it's probably pretty bad.
Yeah, so we picked the 2020 Netflix. Well, actually, I'm not sure if this was a direct to Netflix or what, but
I think it was, but I don't think it was intended to be.
Yeah. So we picked the 2020 film Ava. What are your first reactions to this movie, Nate? I will say this is not as bad as I expected it to be from watching the trailer.
Dude.
It is pretty much what I expected from watching the trailer, but it's not as bad as I expected it to be. How did this meet your expectations of the movie?
It's not good.
No, it's not great.
It's just kind of there. It's a bunch of kind of cliches.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thrown together. It's not a movie that very much thought went into.
Yeah. So, in this movie, Jessica Chastain is the star of the movie, the namesake of the movie, Ava, who is a professional assassin with 41 paid kills to her name, is what we learn. This also features John Malkovich, whose name in the movie is Duke.
Who's the military man. Jessica Chastain's a veteran.
Yeah.
And was recruited by John Malkovich to work for some kind of an assassin's guild.
Yeah. And he's also kind of the mentor.
Mentor for the guy who's currently running the Assassin's Guild.
Well, even for Ava as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we have Collin, who plays Michael, a ex-boyfriend and
ex-boyfriend of
Ava
and fiancé of Judy, played by Jess Wexler.
Yeah.
I principally know Jess Wexler from the Bob Byington film Somebody Up There Likes Me, where she plays the second wife of Keith Paulson's character. In real life, she is married to a man named Hamish Brocklebank.
Yeah.
This sounds like a freaking Harry Potter character.
There is an entire podcast called Who the Hell is Hamish?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, not about him.
Okay.
Yeah. Gina Davis also is in this movie, comprising a character named Bobby, who is Ava's mother. Not really a likable character in this movie. Gina Davis is Gina Davis. You know, she fulfills her role well. But like I said, not a likable character in this movie.
Ian Griffard as an early assassination victim. Diana Silvers, who I know mostly from the movie Booksmart, plays the daughter of Collin Farrell, who's the other assassin character. And then
she was also in Space Farce and Glass.
And then Joan Chen is in this, and I haven't seen a Joan Chen movie from past the early 90s.
Yeah. I'm actually not sure I recognize Joan Chen off the top of my head.
She was in The Last Emperor, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1987. And she was also on Twin Peaks. Okay. So those are the things I know her from. But it had been a really long time since I'd seen her in anything.
Yeah. And then Collin Farrell is the other main protagonist in this, whose name is Simon.
Well, antagonist.
Antagonist, sorry. You're right, my bad. Antagonist in this, who is the current management of the assassin ring and puts into motion, big plot elements of this film. So,
well, it's basically Jessica Chastain is on a mission that goes south because it was kind of sabotage. They gave her some wrong information that would tip off people because she got a name wrong for part of her alibi or her cover story.
Yeah.
And this alerted the Germans at the German embassy in Saudi Arabia that this woman isn't who she claims to be, and resulted in a lot of deaths. And it was done on purpose by Collin Farrell because of his concerns for Jessica Chastain on two fronts. One, she was formerly an alcoholic, and he was concerned she may have been relapsing.
Because of a repeat of a behavior pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that behavior pattern, which is asking the assassination targets what they did
to be targeted. Yeah.
Which
was something she previously did while in the throes of addiction. So.
This is a silly movie.
Silly is one way to describe it. Not probably what would have been top off of my head. I think we're giving anyone as much or more plot overview as they really need for this film. Can you think of any other essential plot elements?
No, that's it. So she goes back, after she kind of botches this thing, she goes back to Boston because her father's recently died, and she reconnects with her dysfunctional family and kind of tries to set some things right, but also kind of reverts to form and possibly sabotages some things.
Well, and attempts to sabotage some things, but also makes a mess of things. But
it also makes amends on things.
But it's while she is trying to be with her family that one of the assassin rings is assigned to assassinate Ava.
Yeah, he's evil French Michael Showalter.
Yeah. And, of course, that goes sideways. She's able to defeat him. Duke goes and confronts Simon, but Simon outplays Duke and ultimately kills Duke and sends video of that to Ava.
That's the best scene in the movie, is the fight between Collin Farrell and John Malkovich. That eventually works its way into a child's nursery, which I just thought was awesome.
Yeah. I thought you were going to replay your joke for that. Instead of being John Malkovich.
It was beating John Malkovich.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of unfortunate to see John Malkovich die in that manner in a movie. But yeah, it was fine.
It would just had a kinetic energy. It was more interesting than most of this movie. This movie's pretty boring. This movie has some good action sequences. The fight at the end between Chastain.
And yet it's still boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was, during some of my boredom, I was looking online, and I kind of skimmed a segment from a review that Richard Roper made of this movie, where he talks about how it's not a good movie, but Jessica Chastain is really delivering. You know, she's putting in a solid performance, and he said this is a franchise-worthy character in a movie that doesn't deserve a sequel. Like, that captures it. Because she's good.
Yeah.
She's good.
Yeah.
And Malkovich is good.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess Collin Farrell's okay.
I mean...
But it's just not that interesting.
I feel like you're not supposed to ever like Collin Farrell in his roles.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that regard, he does his roles well.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay.
It's just there.
The only other person we hadn't mentioned yet in this movie... Oh, no, we already did. Never mind. Diana Silvers.
Yeah.
This ends on a cliff note, setting up potentially some sort of sequel with the closing shot with Diana Silvers, but...
Who's following...
Her name is Camille, and appears to be the assistant to Simon.
Mm-hmm. And is following Ava after Ava has just killed her father.
Yeah.
And they actually have kind of an interesting dynamic, because she has like a 5-6-year-old half-sibling, half-sister. We don't know the story about what happened to the mother, but obviously Collin Farrell is remarried, and we never see the new wife.
No.
Like, the one time they reference her, she's in the shower.
Yeah.
But there's this weird dynamic there, this kind of love-hate thing. Some of the things that were most interesting in this movie are the things that it didn't bother to explore.
Yeah.
Like, I almost want to know how'd she get involved with this group? How'd John Malkovich get involved with it? Did he found it? And if so, how did Collin Farrell get in charge of it?
Well, I assume that he passed it on as... because he was getting older, and that was like his retirement or something. I don't know. But that's never explained.
The backstory just seems more interesting than the movie.
Also, the backstory that seems more interesting than this movie is there is a character in this movie. Let's see if we can find the actor real quick.
Tony's Outdoor Guard.
Is Bruce Robert Serafin. Tony's Outdoor Guard. So there is a gambling ring.
Run by Tony, who's Joan Chen.
Yeah. That... Michael, played by Common, is going to, and that's part of his addiction cycle. And so Ava goes to this gambling parlor, and it's in an alley, and outside is Tony, or not Tony.
Tony's guard.
Yeah, Tony's Outdoor Guard, who is sitting on a chair and with a walkie-talkie, next to some porta potties. And the porta potties, of course, are the entrance to the gambling den.
Tony's Outdoor Guard sounds like a product you would spray on the porta potties to make them smell not so bad.
Yeah. But in this movie, one of the comments that we made was that Tony is very familiar with Ava, but as the movie tells us, Ava has been away for 8 years.
This was one of my favorite, possibly my favorite bad dialogue in this film is where she's having this conversation with Common, and Common says, "I asked you to marry me, then you stayed away for 8 effing years."
Mm-hmm.
That's a no.
Yeah.
That's a no to that proposal.
Yeah. Apparently he didn't get that, and he hung around until he fell in love with her sister.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
Anyways, when she comes back, Tony's Outdoor Guard recognizes her and is very familiar with her and knows her and all these types of things. Which means if she's been gone for 8 years, as you pointed out, he's been working there in this spot in the alley as the outdoor guard
for at least 9 years.
Yeah. Because he had to be familiar enough with her to recognize her after 8 years by name.
Mm.
This movie would have been more entertaining if told from the perspective of Tony's Outdoor Guard.
That would be, I want to know his story.
Yeah.
How did he end up in that position? I mean, that's not a really self-respecting position. How did that place never get raided?
Because Tony's Outdoor Guard was so good at his job.
Was so good, but wouldn't you get suspicious of Tony's Outdoor Guard? It's like, who's this guy always sitting on the folding chair by the porta potties? Well, how come I never get to use those porta potties?
He needs the porta potty so bad he never gets far enough away from them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So if anyone comes, he just goes in a porta potty.
And one of the porta potties is the secret entrance to the club.
Yeah.
Which we were talking about would have certain soundproofing insulation issues.
Yeah. Well, I think that the space and the turns the corners you have to go around to actually get into the den are supposed to be.
That's supposed to be.
Yeah. But it seems insufficient regardless.
I did come up with a way to make this movie a more entertaining watch.
Okay.
Which is to think of it as a sequel to Zero Dark 30.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we never get much of her backstory. You never know.
One thing that stood out to me in this, one of the technical aspects that I pay attention to in a movie like this is how they handle some of the weapons and things. Mm-hmm. She has very poor trigger discipline. And when she throws the flashbangs in the hotel in Riyadh, she would have stunned herself with one of those stun grenades. So just a couple flaw things there, but watching her handle firearms in this movie, you're like, yeah, now I understand why she doesn't handle firearms in more movies.
No.
Yeah, she wasn't very good at it. Mm. Although that one scene made her look reasonable.
Why do you think she made this movie?
No idea.
It's a paycheck movie.
But she doesn't seem like someone who's at a point in her career that she needs a paycheck.
Well, I think sometimes you do. Sometimes you're like, I make this arty movie that may not make very much money.
I think this was
I'm just going to take a paycheck.
I think this was a strategic error.
I think it's also probably a bucket list. I want to star in an action movie.
I mean, really after Zero Dark 30?
Well, this is a more conventional action movie.
Well, she's more the action star in this movie. Yeah. But, I mean, let's look at this more objectively. You're offered a movie with opposite John Malkovich and Collin Farrell. Mm. That's an action movie. That's, on paper, sounds like it would be a good idea.
It could have just be, I want to work with John Malkovich.
But, yeah, this was not a great movie.
See, that's another thing where I want to see the prequel. I want to see a movie with her working with John Malkovich on, some jobs. Yeah.
How would you rate this movie?
Poorly.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it, and I've gone back and forth between 1 and 1.5. The ending I kind of liked. Enough, I think, that I would push it up to 1.5, and I'd give it 3 on the 10-star scale.
Just a 3, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're not far off. I think you're pretty accurate on the 4-star scale. I would probably give this 4 stars on the 10-star scale. You got to be really bad to get much lower than that from me.
The number that came to my mind, and I was joking about giving it, was 3.4. We've been doing this for more than a year, and I finally get super specific to decimal points on Ava.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think that I rate this a little bit higher than you, simply because it was slightly better than I expected based on the trailer. Hmm. So this on IMDb has an aggregate score of 5.4 stars. I'm going to look and see if there's any box office.
It's got a Rotten Tomatoes rating of 17%.
Seems not far off.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, this has a... There's no budget information given, but it says it had an opening weekend, and this was 2020, this was COVID, of $170,000 domestically. It had a domestic gross of $497,000.
That is not even enough money, the $179,000, for Jessica Chastain to hide her family for several months while she takes care of loose ends.
Well, it would have covered the $20,000 in cash that she gave him.
But not the $500,000 in the secret bank account.
Well, the gross would have, the domestic gross.
Oh, the domestic gross.
Yeah. The worldwide gross was $3.2 million.
Yeah.
So this evidently had a theatrical release, and then probably was just sold to Netflix just to cover their costs.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no budget given.
I would be shocked if this movie made its money back.
I assume on the streaming rights that it probably did, and Netflix primed it for a little while. So,
This was a top Netflix view for a while.
Yeah. So I assume that just based off of the Netflix purchase that it probably made its money back. This was directed by a Tate Taylor and written by Matthew Newton. Are you familiar with either one of those people?
I'm not.
Tate Taylor was a producer on The Help, acted in Winter's Bone. So Tate Taylor appears to primarily be an actor. Based on some of his credits, like in Charmed having been applicant number 3, has had an interesting acting career.
Boring.
He has directed some stuff. Interestingly, he has directed evidently some religious works. Some of the credits to his directorial credits are 1 Corinthians 3:13, Hebrews 9:15, Romans 8:30, John 3:3.
They made way too many Hebrews movies.
Yeah.
9:15. I mean, I kind of zoned out in the 700s.
He also directed Ma from 2019 and The Girl on the Train. Oh, he was the director of Grace and Frankie, which was okay.
And The Help. Which would explain the Octavia Spencer and Jessica Chastain connections.
Yeah. But, yeah, so that helps explain why she maybe took this, but if he approached her after The Help and said, hey, I've got an action...
your career. Can you do a crappy action movie for me?
I've got an action movie opposite John Malkovich and Collin Farrell. Probably seems like a reasonable idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got much else to say on this one?
No. It is what it is, and there's not much to it.
Let's see if Bruce Robert Seraphin has more credits. Oh, he was in The Surrogates?
This is a writer.
What I was thinking of.
Oh, no, he's an actor.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is the door guy.
Yeah.
Tony's out.
He was in Spotlight. He was the security guard in Spotlight.
That would be awesome if he just played security guards.
He was in a movie called The Polka King in 2017. So,
Live by Night, which is a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't have much else to add on this movie.
Did you ever... Oh, yeah, 4 and 1?
Yeah. Well, 1.5. I'll go with you on that one.
Yeah, okay.
I'll go half stars on under 2, but once we go above 2, I don't generally want to give half stars. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, this isn't... Yeah. We have watched worse movies than this.
Yeah. Well, this leads us to ranking the movies of Jessica Chastain month.
Yeah, how would you rank the 4?
I don't think there's much mystery about 1 and 4. 4 obviously was Ava, and 1 was Tree of Life. 2 and 3, depending on when you ask me, could be either or. They're very close. But I would put A Most Violent Year slightly ahead of Zero Dark 30.
So for me, it's swap 2 and 3. Zero Dark 30 would be 2 for me. A Most Violent Year would be 3, and then Ava, obviously 4.
And you know what? You
but
say
Tree
that,
of Life
you say
is,
that, and I could flip it.
Yeah.
As I said, it's like it could just as easily be.
But Tree of Life easily is the number 1 in this one. So,
which arguably is the movie that Jessica Chastain has the least to do in.
Yeah, but it was the best movie we watched.
It was definitely.
I suppose if you were ranking it by her performance, then it's kind of a toss-up between Zero Dark 30 and A Most Violent Year as number 1. Though Tree of Life, while it's a supporting role, her performance is still great.
She accomplishes a lot with not a lot to do.
Yeah. Anything else, Dad?
It was a good month.
It was a fun month. Even trying to pull ourselves down at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Like, we intentionally kind of went, well, this one probably won't be as good. Let's just watch it. But even trying to pull it down, it was a fun month. So, yeah. Do we want to give them a preview of next month?
We could.
So next month, we're going to do good and bad Nicolas Cage movies.
I want to call it Nicolas Cage, the Good and the Bad.
That's right. So, yeah. Think of some of your favorite or least favorite Nicolas Cage movies, and we'll see if we hit them. So, I'm Rob.
I'm Nate.
And this is Rob and Nate Record a Podcast. Collin Farrell... I want to like Collin Farrell.
Uh-huh.
And yet, every movie I watch him in, I'm like, yeah, I don't really like Collin Farrell.
Yeah.
Which I think is, like, the way you're supposed to feel about the people he portrays. But maybe at some point we'll have to do a Collin Farrell month, but I don't know that would be a fun month.
Mm.
So, you got anything witty for...
No.
We don't have any outtakes yet.
Boring.
Yeah. Our outtakes are going to be you hitting the mic with the pen.
Mm.
I'm going to just...
And that's how you should play that. And then you should play that be hitting the mic with the pen. Then you saying the outtake will be hitting the mic with the pen. And then me continuing to talk about that. Just far too long.
Or I'll just delete all of this.
Yeah.
Hold up. Look at this. I was doing all sorts of research on the fair use practice stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what the exemptions are. Purpose and character of use, nature of the copyright work, amount and substantiality, and then effect upon work's value. We have no effect upon the value of it.
No.
Like,